You're listening to Kizuki, the podcast. I'm Mae Yoshikawa, and I define the Japanese concept of Kizuki as the following. Kizuki. 1. A moment of epiphany, an aha of realization or insight which opens the knower to a new dimension of truth that was formerly unknown. 2. Steps in an incremental growth of awareness, resulting in a movement from ignorance to greater awareness of the bigger picture. A kind of knowing that cannot be undone, that cannot be unrealized. As a longtime yoga and meditation practitioner, a world traveler, and curious self-explorer, I'm obsessed with Kizukis. Listen on each week for inspiring and enlightening stories that may just tip you over for your next aha. On this week's episode, the abundance apology. In one of the earlier episodes of my Domino Kizuki series, I spoke about daddy issues and money, about how our relationship with money often has very little to do with money itself, but rather all of the things that have to do with invisible beliefs we inherited growing up. And today, I'd like to zoom out one level further, because clearly my relationship with money was not only shaped by my father, it was also shaped by my culture. Because the beliefs that shape our lives aren't only passed down by familial inheritance. They're passed down by an entire society that came before us. That is, our cultural inheritance, or the whole slew of beliefs and the way we look at the world that we are taught by our cultural upbringing. And to explore that, I want to introduce to you a Japanese word that every child in Japan grows up with. Mottainai. I can almost see already some of my listeners out there who are familiar with Japanese culture going, oh, yeah, that grandma. So let me explain. Mottainai is one of those Japanese words and concepts that's so difficult to translate directly, but I would say the closest English expression is, what a waste. But the concept points to more than that. It's a cultural value of reverence that teaches us to appreciate what we have and not to waste our resources, whether that's food, money, opportunity, or anything. If you grew up in Japan, you might remember Mottainai Ba-san. It's a Japanese classic picture book, a story about a grandmother who gently reminded us not to waste anything. Don't waste your food, don't waste water, paper, money, electricity, anything of value. And she would repeatedly say, mottainai, mottainai. And of course, this is a beautiful value. And at the same time, today, I want to explore the other side of that. What happens when that value establishes itself as a form of fear? Because whether you grew up with a book or not, or in Japan or not, you've probably on some level been taught to not waste your food. Oh, and that's extreme in Japan because we're taught to not waste the last speck of rice in your bowl. And oftentimes in school or in kindergartens, we're taught to delicately pick up that last speck of rice with the tip of our chopsticks, right? And probably don't waste paper, don't waste water, don't waste electricity, don't waste money, don't waste opportunities, on and on and on. And while of course, I honestly agree that these are important values, and I'm all for sustainability and conservation, I also want to contrast it with other cultures in the world and with the underlying belief system there. So one of the things I noticed in spending time with some of my American friends in their homes, and I need to say this with gentle love, y'all are some of the most wasteful people I've ever seen, okay? Like these huge, massive portions, a daily dose of doggy bags taken home only to go old in the fridge and tossed a few days later. It's such a disposable culture, and it's not uncommon that people are buying things that they don't even use. And it's as if those portions, like when you order food, they're not even meant to be finished in the first place because it's near impossible, but it's served that big so that the restaurant can charge that much. It's like all so strange to me. And I would find myself thinking, just wow, what a contrast from Japan. So clearly there's a lot that American culture can learn from and borrow from Japanese culture. And there's an opposite side that's also true, because there is a freedom and flow and carefreeness to American culture. But once again, before I dive into that, let me make something very clear that personally, I love taking care of things. I have like t-shirts and tank tops from when I was 14 years old. I have an old folder from 5th grade that I can still use. I appreciate leftovers, and I wholly believe that our planet desperately needs more consciousness around consumption and waste. But in today's episode, what I want to do is, beyond looking at that act of wasting or preserving, I want to look at the motive behind it, which is a little more invisible. I want to look at why we choose how we choose. Because in the case of mottainai culture, I want to point out that there's often a point where even this seemingly beautiful reverence can become an expression of fear. For example, don't be wasteful can quietly turn into don't ask for too much. Don't take up too much space. Don't be excessive. Don't buy the nicer thing. Don't hire help. Somewhere along the way, we stop wasting, but some of us also hold ourselves back from expanding. And in this case, because the cultural bondage to the meaning we give to mottainai, like don't waste, is so strong, it gets linked to our sense of self, as if to say, don't take too much, because if you do, you'll be too much. And that's shameful. And I'm beginning to feel into and understand how so many of us don't even realize we've confused our value of modesty with making ourselves smaller. But there's a subtle but profound difference between I honor what I receive and I better stay small to be good. Because one is reverence, but the other, it's self-restriction. This distinction, for me on a personal level, has become a big Kizuki moment, especially because it's something I grew up with for so much of my life. I've caught myself so many times thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't. Not because I couldn't, but because somewhere in my nervous system, that excessive nature felt not right. Maybe even unsafe. Like receiving too much felt like it would come with guilt and shame. As though if life became easier, I was doing something wrong, or like something morally wrong. I needed to take a pause, a long pause, and just break free to begin to look for and allow myself a fresh perspective. And as I sometimes do in times like these, I started looking at nature, just observing. because sometimes when I feel confused about how to live, I like to ask, well, what does life do? Now, here's what I noticed. A flower doesn't bloom halfway to prove humility. A tree doesn't apologize for bearing fruit abundantly. It's celebrated. Life is extravagant. And I began to think, maybe humans say mottainai because we're afraid of loss, waste, missed opportunity, and separation from resource. It's like survival. So while on the surface, a lot of this is presented as a form of reverence, upon close look, one can see that it often is very much laced with a historical sense of scarcity and survival. But look at life. Life looks astonishingly lavish to me. Forests drop thousands of seeds, knowing only a fraction will sprout. Trees produce blossoms that fall after days. The ocean creates unimaginable abundance most humans never even witness. Stars explode entire galaxies into being, and your own body is shedding millions of cells, constantly replacing them. Oh, and here's another one. What about the hundreds of millions of sperm released in one act of love, and only a singular one even has the chance of becoming the beginning of a life? Life doesn't seem to be embarrassed by excessive overflow. Tell me this isn't true. What I'm observing is that nature doesn't seem optimized around making sure every little drop gets used up. It seems to move and flow around the freeness of extravagant expression, like it's having fun in it or something. And look at those fallen fruits rotting into the earth. Life doesn't see failure there. The fruit, it feeds other stuff like insects and soil and microbes. It's like returned nutrients. It just completes a cycle. But humans look at that and might interpret it through the lens of mottainai. What a waste. We didn't get to use it. But without those lenses, life may look at it and think, oh, what a beautiful return. Round and round we go. Like life is wildly, almost incomprehensibly abundant and experimental, playful maybe. So it's interesting to note where this moral lens comes in to judge it as too excessive or too much or greedy. I just don't get that sense from nature itself. It's like psychologically and culturally, I think many of us are just beginning to tap into a reality our nervous systems never felt safe enough to know. The possibility that overflow is not inherently immoral. That you can be deeply conscious and caring of your resources and the planet. You can be loving, modest in spirit, and still allow yourself extra. Because life itself seems to enjoy that expression beyond mere survival. So maybe you've survived enough winters to know how to endure. Okay, that's just me, but maybe you have too. But perhaps there is a possibility, an opening into this next season that's wanting to teach you more. How to not only bear fruit abundantly, but also to be okay with receiving it just in the natural flow of life. Receiving lots of support, love, care, and success, all without immediately translating it into self-modification. So today, I want to leave you with this question. Where in your life Have you mistaken staying small for being respectful or modest? And what might become possible if you realized that honoring what you've been given doesn't require shrinking yourself? Thank you for listening. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you took a moment to rate, review, or share the show with someone who might be ready to discover that there's a name for the moments of awareness and subtle shifts they've been experiencing on their own journey. If you're curious to experience Kizuki journaling, you can explore my guided journaling sessions at maey.live under On Demand. Each session explores a single theme through just 3 journal prompts woven together with a guided meditation. If you'd like to join a live session on Zoom, sign up for my newsletter at the bottom of maey.live or kizukijournaling.com to be the first to hear about upcoming sessions. Until next time, may your next Kizuki gently find you.